Greetings and salutations, intercitizens. I don't know why I have that false start. I should really just pause and wait until the camera starts ticking before I get going. But here we go with the unboxing and overview of the starter set, RuneQuest Role-Playing in Glorantha. Okay, I don't know why. I've already did a video, did a quick run of this video once before. I had such a difficult time saying Glorantha in the first video and just now. And yet, when I do the Pathfinder unboxing videos and review videos for the starter sets or the beginner boxes, I say Glorantha so many times in those videos by accident when I mean to say Galarian, and yet I botch Galarian and this once time again here. It's just sometimes I hate being special. But anyways, this is an amazing opportunity to share with everyone. There's a quick side note I have to get before I start getting into this review. Due to the fact that I've never played RuneQuest before, and the closest thing I ever gotten to RuneQuest is Call of Cthulhu. Which I also did in the video just before this. I'll have a hard time explaining the exact systems of RuneQuest. I do know the basic framework of the concepts. However, I can't really give a solid grade on the system in itself. I have to at some point I have to run the system. I have to find someone to play in the system with, and it's just that simple. However, I can tell you what's in the box, my personal feeling of the quality of the contents of the box, and how it compares to, say, like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And the reason why I did all the Dungeons & Dragons videos first, or a lot of them first, is literally because I'm really familiar with Dungeons & Dragons and 3.5, 4th edition, 5th edition, and therefore I'm capable of using that as a starting point whenever jumping off into these other systems. The systems that I know a good amount of stuff about, and also the systems like this one where I only know the basic history of it and the basic concepts, but not all the deep workings of it. At some point, if I really ever truly get a group that falls in love with RuneQuest and I can actually go through all the adventures with it, I will absolutely do reviews for all those adventures and books. But at this point in time, I'm not comfortable doing reviews for RuneQuest due to the lack of experience with RuneQuest. This is more of a overview video and an impressions video than a review video. But there will be a bit of a review component when talking about the quality of the contents in the box. There is going to be the Verse Dungeons & Dragons scale stars, and then there is going to be the box as itself compared to every other tabletop role-playing RPG starter set, excluding Dungeons & Dragons. Because Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is sort of in its own little weird spot of being like the really cheap, really minimal box with just enough stuff to play it, with just a certain combination of things, and yet everyone else does it so different and so much better than them. Yeah, just end up watching those videos for exactly what's in those boxes. Probably the two best boxes overall for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is the Essentials Kit and Rick and Morty. And yet those also have their own faults in themselves. This is the RuneQuest Role-Playing Glorantha Starter Set. This is actually a beautiful box. It is a hefty little box. It's thinner than the starter sets. This is the Rick and Morty is actually the thinnest starter set box for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's only slightly thinner. Get that corner. And it's slightly shorter than the RuneQuest box. I still do really want another Rick and Morty adventure set, or even a world-setting book for Rick and Morty, or Dungeons and Dragons. And then I would also really like a Futurama one. But anyways, this box is extremely well constructed, thick walls, treated inside cardboard, so it actually is pretty durable. You have this beautiful sheet in the front here, talking about a bit about the history of RuneQuest. Interestingly enough, RuneQuest is so old of a TTRPG line that if Gary Gygax didn't take the poison pill to create this box, RuneQuest would have beat him to the punch pretty handily. This came out, the white box, which is OD&D, came out in 1972 in a cardboard, in a brown wood box, wood design box. And then they later on produced these white boxes, which is where the term white box comes from when referring to the original Dungeons and Dragons. And that's like the complete setup there, by the way. But anyways, RuneQuest is like out in 1975. 1972, 1975. So RuneQuest was pretty far out, pretty quickly out behind them. This is the sheet that says, "Read me first." It gives you a little quick overview of RuneQuest and each of the books. Book 1, Rules. Book 2, The World of Glorantha. Book 3, Solo Quest. Book 4, Adventures. Then it has ready-made adventurers. There's 14 of them. There's 2 blank sheets. There's maps of Johnstown. There's a map of Johnstown specifically. Map of the Rainbow Mounds. And role-playing dice. Those are actually really nice dice overall. They are, for the most part, quasi-solid color. They're that beautiful caramel color. I actually do like that color. However, they do vary slightly, and I had to test them out to see if they actually roll consistently. But I really do. I give them props for using a specialty baggie that fits nicely up here. That is openable, reopenable, Ziploc bag. So you can put your specific RuneQuest dice in this baggie and take it out. This is a nice thing that a lot of other TTRPG companies make or include, is bags that are resealable. This is not always the case. Paizo doesn't always do it with their starter sets. See those videos? And Dungeons & Dragons basically doesn't ever do it with any of the newer editions, or even mostly from the older editions. Wizards of the Coast kind of cheaps out and gives you just a a vacuum sealed bag, which you just have to rip open, and you now have loose dice. You have to put them in a case. Where this is you got this handy dandy Ziploc bag. I love that. This would be nice if they included a few more dice in here. Another, you got a D10s right here, and a D10. It would be nice if they included a few more in here, another D6, another D6 or 2. That would be nice if they had more D6s. Maybe some more D4s, and another D20. But I'm being greedy then. I really do like the Ziploc bag. This is actually a really nice sheet with really nice work. By the way, RuneQuest won the Diana Jones Award in Gaming Excellence. On the backside, as I said before, it's the list of all the fun stuff that comes in the box. Here is the first book, which is the rules book. On the backside of the rules book, there is a map of a region, which you can use in-game for your characters. This book does not contain any rules pertaining to character creations. Character creation, as the creation rules for for RuneQuest, is actually extremely deep and requires a lot of reading. However, it's a gaming system that is actually in line with classic Western video gaming RPGs, where it's a completely open system like Elder Scrolls Skyrim, or Fallout, or RuneScape, or even Final Fantasy XIV, where your character is basically whatever class your character is. It's basically how you choose to play that character, and the equipment you choose to equip with your character, and the accumulation of experiences in your journeys. You can start your character as a sword fighter, and essentially turn your character into a spellcaster by the end of the game, or you could start your character as a spellcaster and then morph them into a sword and board, heavy armored fighter over time. It is a very fluid system that allows for the true range of creativity in creating your characters, which I love in concept. As I said before, I never played RuneQuest before, so I basically only understand basic structures that I have experienced in other TTRPGs, as well as what I know from Western video games, as well as my studies into RuneQuest, but not playing it. There is a lot of basic rules and stats and abilities. You got strength, constitution, size, dexterity, intelligence, power, charisma. Very much the same kind of mix as Call of Cthulhu, which I have tons of stuff for Call of Cthulhu and have experience playing with Call of Cthulhu mechanics and stuff like that. So that's the thing that I'm going to be using the most, as well as my experience playing video games, to understand how RuneQuest works. But anyways, there's also strength checks and constitution checks, intelligence checks, dexterity checks, luck checks, charisma checks. So it doesn't even match out entirely 100% between your stats and your checks. And then you have abilities like skills, runes, and passions. There's a lot of texture in this game, but it's also not super crunchy. It is mostly out in the open and easy to read. There's a results table on your ability results. You can have critical success, special success, failure, and fumble. You got 4 different degrees of failure. You got winner, losers, sections, tiers, 2 losers, a lot of opposed rules. Your resistance table, when you perform a magical attack against an opponent, or you physically strike them with a weapon, then you have to then check the table with your die rolls and the opposing opponent's abilities and stats to see whether you are successful in hitting them. And then in your die roll, inside your die roll is also your hit location as well. Like you can strike them in the head, or you can strike them in the leg. There's also a little section on here talking about Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, and explaining quickly the relationship between Call of Cthulhu mechanics and RuneQuest mechanics. And there's these, as I said, there's these handy dandy boxes spread out through RuneQuest Glorantha that actually helps you tie it into another system, and also explains things firsthand from the rule, gameplay tests, and so forth when you are reading through these books. There is time and movement section, skills, which goes into agility skills, communication skills, knowledge skills, which also gets into your lore and your languages, and then you have your magic skills, manipulation skills, perception skills, stealth skills, weapon skills. And then there's the section on your experience system, time and skill in relationship here, passions, basic passions, using passions, inspiration. You can use your passion to empower yourself in a moment of great need, to push yourself forward in the game. There's types of runes. In RuneQuest, there's actually 3 magical systems. There's the rune system, which is actually rather simple. By the way, as I said before, like Skyrim, literally anyone can learn magic in RuneQuest. You could be basically a barbarian, or you can be like a barbarian-like character, and you can know magic. You can be like a fighter, know magic. You can be like a, a spellcaster. You can know how to use a sword or melee weapons effectively. RuneQuest does not lock you into a archetype, which then makes it complicated for some people to play. However, being that it is a system that is totally open, you can be a sword, board, and blaster type character who can enter combat with your sword and shield, battling and throwing out spells here and there, calling on the power of the gods to help you take down enemies, or drawing runes quickly or such, that you can easily quickly do all kinds of fun things. And it's a system that is quadrantial in its nature. You could start really simply with just really simple themes and concepts, and you could really explode your character out into multiple different directions of skill sets. As I said, there's a nice little rune summary. This is actually a simplified one. There is types. There's rune, name, type, association, gods, and opposes. So you got the symbol here, which your character invokes to cast their magic. You got the name: darkness, water, earth, fire, sky, air, moon, harmony, disorder, stasis, movement, truth, illusion, fertility, death, man, beast, chaos. And then you have types: element, power, and form. And then the associations, say like in darkness, stealth skills, listen, secrets, cold, hunger, blunt weapons, and insects. So darkness ties into those key words. Why do I do air quotes key words? But it ties into these keywords for its effect. And then the gods is troll gods, and it opposes. There's no opposing it. There's no opposing tied into it. You got a nice little section on more onto your successes and failures with rune magic. You got your combat section on your strikes, melee round explaining your melee interaction. You got some beautiful artwork. It keeps going and going. It's just strike rank modifiers and so forth. And then you are like a parry, attack and parry results table. You got your levels of success and your types of parry, like critical parry, special parry, normal parry, failed parry, fumbled parry. So when you're going up against like, oh, you got a critical attack against a critical parry, okay, what happens? So you go from there. Attacker rolls a normal damage. Defenders, parrying weapon takes 1 HP damage if rolled damage is greater than its current HP. Any excess damage goes to the affected hit location. There's the answer right there. And that's the system in RuneQuest seems to come off or create the sensation of being very tactical. However, this is all occurring out of dice rolls. So you're not picking like, I'm going to strike him in the arm. You roll the dice. It tells you, okay, you hit him in the leg. He managed to partially block your attack with his sword, reducing its effectiveness, but you damage his sword and you get him in the leg, and you do a bit of damage to his leg as well. Or his arm, or whatever else. You got combat terms section here. These are nice little handy dandy boxes. You got different types of dodges, because you can dodge your opponent's attack. You have a section on here on basically a basic equipment here, how you equip your character. Instead of like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, where it's like you just pile on armor. This is your AC. In RuneQuest, you put on a helmet. That helmet adds this much defense to your head and improves your head stats. It's tied to the helmet. You put on a shield. It your shield improves your overall defense and your arm. You put on body armor, that improves your defense with your body, so forth. It's more like older editions of Dungeons and Dragons in that sense, where it's you're just equipping different pieces of gear onto your different body parts, and the gear affects your whole sum, and then also affects that specific body part in general. You got healing spells. You got a section on healing and death in here as well. This goes into your character sheet, your adventure sheet, which is actually a type of a character sheet that I don't really care for. Choasium, you're not the only. Choasium is not the only company that does this type of character sheet. Cubicle 7 has this type of character sheet with their Warhammer games, and various other companies do, where it's just a fold open folio. I don't care for that so much, but it does fold open, and you could have most of your important information on one side. But it's an extra big sheet, and you can't really print copy it off unless you get extra large sheets to print on, and you have to do a bunch of extra adjusting, you know, stuff like that. But anyways, I'm going to go over that. There's a section on example of combat where it actually goes into, like, this is what this character does, and then the game master adjudicates it, and these are the results, and so forth. You got a section on magic. Now, didn't I come over a section on magic earlier? Oh, yes, indeed. But RuneQuest has 3 magic systems. You have your rune magic, which is a really common form of magic that a lot of people use. The rune magic is more of that middle ground, somewhat educated magic where people know how to read and write symbols, and they can tie magic into those. Magic is tied into those symbols, or use an object that has that symbol, and the magic is generated from that symbol. Where there's also spirit magic, where you basically call upon a magic of a spirit, say like the spirit of that rock over there, or spirit of the tree, or spirit of water, or something like that, or heart, or, you know, kind of stuff like that. I made a bad joke, I'm sorry. Anyways, but there's spirit magic, and that's not specifically tied to gods or anything, and that's not the same as rune magic. It's another form of magic. It's actually the base universal common magic. Basically, almost everyone has spirit magic and some level of rune magic in their repertoire, and you'll see that when I get to the character sheets. There is a lot of that, and I'm like realizing this is really thick. There's a section on spirit magic summary, like spell, befuddle, cost 2, type RD, target description confused, it can only be defended until directly attacked. You notice that there's a slight difference in structure in here, how the components play out. Yeah, there's different set of rules for each type of magic, but it also fundamentally follows the same core structure. It just modifications off one side or other of the magic system, and I can't spend a whole ton of time over it. They go from quickly talking about spirit magic back into rune magic again, and you have different runes. Because rune magic and spirit magic are your bread and butter, but yet rune is probably the most common one. Probably the simplest one to understand, so that's why they put the bulk of it in here. And then as we get to the back end of here, we actually get into another section on the... Interestingly enough, we switch back into spirit magic again. I don't know why it happens. And then we get into like sorcery, which is the third type of magic, and sorcery is more akin to what wizards do in Dungeons and Dragons, and they only really quickly touch over it in here because it's a much more complex concept, and it's more fiddly. It's more of a construction tool set in Magic as opposed to the other two, which are basically use items or quick instructions to invoke a trait or a force in the universe. So that's the first book, and that has eaten up a good chunk of the video. Which is, this first book is 62 pages. Remember that I like to refer to the Spelljammer 5th edition books at 64 pages as a standard of how much you get. That's 62 pages right there. There's 4 books in this. There is World Lore. This section shows you various the important places in your in the starter set world of Glorantha, starter set area of Glorantha, and also ties in information to the various magic systems tied into those places. The pro and con of RuneQuest is that magic is more fundamentally ingrained into the world. Dungeons and Dragons is sort of like this weird is this system where you have this core combat mechanic that you operate around, and then magic is attached to the side of the world. So you could essentially play Dungeons and Dragons, and you cut magic completely out of the system, and there's very little. Or you can alter magic heavily in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or other editions, and it won't affect the core system too much. Where RuneQuest is like the magic is fundamental to the universe, and the universe is fundamental to the magic, because all the magic is tying into invoking the power of the gods or tying into spirits in the environment around you. So when you get into like more complex rune spells, you get into deities. Elidia, you got her runes. She has standard runes here. So each god has standard runes tied to them and description tied to that god. Eldrea, see if I can actually pronounce that correctly, has those 3 runes tied to, in relationship to her, and that's her description right there. The goddess of force and mother of elves. And I kind of had to like power through this, and it basically goes over the history of Glorantha and the various races and cultures in Glorantha, but it is mostly focused strongly on humans. There is a lot of other races in the world of Glorantha, like trolls and the ducks. There's a race of ducks. Donald Duck, to be specific. Okay, think about that. But anyways, there's a bunch of other races, but this is mostly tied into the humans. And you got another nice map of the North Sartor with the date 1625 ST. The beginning of history. It tells you the history of the world, or at least that part of the world. The city of Johnstown. And it just keeps pumping through. Gives you more maps. There's a map of Johnstown. The higher city, the lower city. Classic Greek, old world Greek architecture with a touch of Mesopotamian, Sumerian culture tied in there. This is like RuneQuest is based in the Bronze Age, which is your weapons are bronze, they ding up, stuff like that. You don't have a lot of armor, so forth. And your characters are more magically tied into the world because that's what gives them power, and they're more tied into nature themselves. You got a nice little section on various important characters. Nice example of the character of the appearance of characters. As I said, it's more like Greek, Sumerian, and kind of stuff. You'll see some really interesting stuff like that. I just have to stare at the people wearing women wearing false beards for a moment there. Like, think about it. A beard is actually tied into wisdom and leadership and power in cultures, in ancient cultures. So, yeah, you'll see women wearing false beards, like decorative beards, like a little cup or something with gems in it, or an actual fake beard weaved out of normal hair. Healing for hire. There's a healing service in Glorantha. You got a little section on describing the various maps and areas. This is handy dandy. It's some really ancient artwork. Yet again, it's really Greek, into Mesopotamia, old world Bronze Age cultures. Johnstown area map. You also got dwarves in the game. You have Dwarf Cliff. I can't spend too much time because I'm going to run out of video record time. But then you have a section here called Solo Book. Much like Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest comes with a book where you basically game master yourself through adventure. It's basically like a choose your own adventure. There's a little section in the front explaining contents, explaining how your starter character, explaining how you start the adventure and your setup, and then your starting point. And it just goes through from there. It also has in the back another map. All these books have maps on the back of them, by the way. And then you have character adventures. And you have like a total of 3 major adventures and a bunch of short ones, as well as in the very back of the book, a calendar for Glorantha right here. So like sea season, fire season, earth season, dark season, storm season, sacred time, and so forth. Various other charts for your adventures and stuff. I'm not going to show off a whole lot of stuff in here because I'm not going to show off really anything because I don't want to give away anything of awesomeness if you want to ever actually play this. As I said before, there is a lot of really beautiful artwork in here. And then you have the character sheets. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these character sheets, but there's like 14 of these pre-made character sheets, and they fold out like this. This is actually a very similar style to like some other gaming systems, like Cubicle 7 does this, where they have it open up like that. You have all your core stats and your equipment loadout on this side right here. So you can just open it up and just set it down, and you have all your skills. You got your weaponry right here, and your hit location chances, and your AP and HP. And then you have over here your common rune magic. So you know this is the rune spells you know. And then you have your spirit magic down here with your spirit magic points. And then on here, this is your matrix for your elements that your character is in sync with in the world, and are tied to their birth and their tribal experience and their belief system. So that's why there is no rules in this starter set for creating characters, because to create a character, it is actually quite extensive. You also notice that you got like a good mix of men and women. Most of them have friends that come with them, like earth elementals, riding zebras, cousin monkey, fire elemental, and so forth. There's 14 of these in total. As I said, both men and women. And then you have some characters that tattoo implements that don't have companions, but they do have extra items tied to them. And then you have these blank sheets where all the stuff is completely blank for you to finish out. As I said, I don't really care for this type of fold open sheet. I actually prefer those standard ones. However, I don't really play using those fold open sheets often. So I don't know, it might actually be one of those situations where I like actually get around to like getting extra wide paper printed and start using these for various game systems and then totally fall in love with them, because it does make sense in principle that when you open it up, you just have your little simple notes here on this sheet, and you have just your basic matrix, what I refer to my matrix, or your, as they say, elemental affinities and power affinities, which is just your really basic stuff. But once you open it up, you got all your core information right here for everything you want to do with your character. As I said, you got multiple maps. You got the map of the greater world. And I don't mean the entire world. I just mean like the region in which Johnstown is located in, North Starter, as well as a nice map of Johnstown in its entirety, the upper and the lower section, as well as it being divided or denoted in its different sections like the Great Market and the South Market and the Scholars' Quarters and so forth, or the Crafters' Quarters over here. So it is rather well marked out. It's actually really good quality paper. It's actually quite thick. You've also got the Rainbow Mountains, which is actually a really beautiful map. All these maps, by the way, have keys in the corner for distance in meters. It's not doing the Imperial systems kind of thing that Dungeons and Dragons does. And that, as I said, is a beautiful map. It's not gridded or anything, but yet again, it's important to note that RuneQuest does not give a crap about grids. It is not a tactical system like that. It is a system where it's highly organic and constantly evolving, and it allows your character to grow and develop however you feel or however the situation meets the character. Then you have this handy dandy sheet right here that has all your important charts here. So yeah, this is nice actually. It got your basic rune summary. You got your augmenting with passions, runes, and skills. Those chart down here. You got your resistance table, your hit location table, your shield hit location table modifier, and then you have your common rune magic table down here. On this side here, you got your ability results table, as well as your attack and parry results table, and your dodge results table down here. And then you have this nice little here, right here, where it has another section on your basic, your forms runes for your characters and your conditions. And then you got elements and powers on the backside. And then right here, you have a strike rank tracker to keep track of your strike ranks and stuff like that for your system. And I had to go into the system much more deep to explain the impact this has on your gameplay experience, because I don't play RuneQuest with Roleplaying Glorantha. I have to like get into that before I can get into explaining that. So that's why this is more of like a overview video as opposed to a review video. As you can see, that is a lot of stuff that's in this here. Compare that to like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Even the chonkiest, I mean like the starter set that gives you the most is like that at best. Is this at best. So they really throw a lot of Choasium really gives you a lot of value for your buck when it comes to this system, and it's an award winner too. As a standalone starter set score, it looks to me as if it's like a 4-star. The only thing I don't see in here is like a game master screen. If you're the kind of person who literally does not give a crap about a game master screen, this might actually be better score. But that's a question for you. I don't play the system, so I do not know how effective the teaching guides are in the system. However, based on my knowledge of Call of Cthulhu 7th Edition and from what I could see in here preliminarily, I'm giving a preliminary score of 4+ stars. 4+ stars for the starter set. It may be so much vastly better than what I'm giving it, or it might be worse. There's only that weirdness where you have a section on rune magic, and then you have spirit magic, and then you have runes again. But I don't know. It might make more sense once I read through it in more depth in future times. But anyways, this is actually a really, really neat system to get into. And I'm about to run out of time to record this video. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And tell me if you really want me to get more into RuneQuest role-playing Glorantha. I'm going to have to get into some effort in trying to get people to play a RuneQuest with me. To really give you a good review and guide series on it. Thank you very much for watching. Have a delightful day, a nice night, and a wonderful week, and see you next time.